UFC Fight Night Tampa, Covington versus Buckley just took place, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card. But before I even get into the early prelim opener, this was probably the greatest card of all time. It would have cemented itself as the greatest card of all time if the main event didn't end because of a cut that it definitely could have continued with. However, this was one of the greatest cards of all time. It started off very slow, but it quickly became an absolute finish fest where every single fight was just getting finished brutally back to back to back to back. There were a couple in between that weren't as good, but then out of nowhere, there'd be like a KO of the year contender. And then Manel Kape. We're going to get to Manel Kape. We're going to get to Manel Kape. Just wait. Starting with the early prelim opener of Piera Rodriguez versus Josefine Knutsson. This was a decision win for Piera Rodriguez. She got takedowns on Josefine Knutsson. Women's MMA. We'll just move on from this. Josefine Knutsson tried to do her thing in the strike, and Piera Rodriguez got takedowns here and there. Who cares? Good win from Piera Rodriguez. We move on. Davey Grant versus Ramon Taveras. I do want to talk about this one. Unks showed up on tonight's card, and Davey Grant had one of the better performances in his career. I mean, no, probably not one of the better performances in his career. He's knocked out guys like Jonathan Martinez, who is ranked right now, I believe, in the bantamweight division. He was robbed by Adrian Yanez. He was robbed by Daniel Marcos. We'll get into that fight in a second as well. But Davey Grant is one of the most underrated fighters on the roster. He is one of the most underranked fighters on the roster. Give him a big name in London and give him a big spotlight in London as well. Davey Grant is guaranteed entertainment every single time. Kicking the legs, the body, the head of Ramon Taveras throughout the fight. Big shots as well on the feet. He just non-stop throws mean intentions into every single thing that he throws. And he had an amazing performance against Ramon Taveras, who again, I picked as the underdog, Davey Grant. Picked him to win this fight. I had a great night of predictions. I believe I got every single fight on the card right, other than the opening fight on the card. And I said Davey Grant would win this fight 29-28. And he got 30-27 on two scorecards, a 29-28 on one. Because, again, Ramon Taveras just boxes. That's all he does. And that's a problem in the sport, especially in the bantamweight division. As I said, we'll get to Adrian Yanez in a second. We move on. Miranda Maverick. Felipe Lima versus Miles Johns. Another great performance. Even the decisions were good. Felipe Lima looks good. He looked crisp. I thought it could have been closer to 2-1 here. But 30-27, A-okay with it. Actually, I think it was 3-0 in this fight, right? Because Felipe Lima would do something towards the end. But it just looked like he got stunned at one point in the fight in one of the rounds. I can't quite remember which one because some of the KOs this card just absolutely wiped my memory every single time. But really good performance by Felipe Lima. Miles Johns just boxes and throws overhands and swings hard. Felipe Lima had a really good jab. He would mix things up and take advantage of Miles Johns throwing himself off balance to get the back and positions like that. And a really, really standout performance. That's 2-0 now in the UFC for Felipe Lima. He's one of the better prospects in the featherweight division. And yeah, I think Miles Johns needs to go back to bantamweight. But really good win from Felipe Lima, man. Really, really solid win. We move on. Sean Woodson versus Fernando Padilla. Let me get into some of these finishes. So Fernando Padilla comes out there like he knows he ain't going 3 rounds. Starts the fight going crazy. All over Sean Woodson. Swarming him. Knees to the body. Shots upstairs. Sean Woodson does look like he's wilting a little bit. But then you see a bit of composure kick in on Sean Woodson. And after like the halfway point of round 1, Padilla just lost all composure in the fight. He was getting stung by shots. And he wasn't even wobbled by them all the time. But he would just like spin around after a right hand landed. There was he didn't stand his base in any way. You know what I mean? I'm not even trying to make a joke about that. He just didn't stand his base. He was getting hit by shots. And normally, you know, your head spins and you stay there in your stance. He would get hit and then just go for a fucking walk afterwards and lose all composure and all toughness. And then eventually Sean Woodson put together the combinations that he needed. He was staying patient. Padilla was sticking it on him in moments and swarming and trying to get the volume going, but Sean Woodson was way more composed, and that's what it came down to. Another fight I got correct. Again, I got all of them right, but the first fight on the card. Sean Woodson puts him away with a nasty combo. I think it was like a rear uppercut, left hook, puts down Fernando Padilla, follows up with a few ground and pound shots. There were a bunch of super unnecessary shots, but also super necessary at the same time. Great job by Sean Woodson. I mean, there were a bunch of super unnecessary shots throughout the card as well. Everyone was going for follow-up shots. One of them was valid, though. We'll move on. Up the card, Joel Alvarez versus Drakkar Klose. They score this a KO by flying near. But I don't think Joel Alvarez knew this was a KO by flying near. Because he went out there. Nasty performance from Joel Alvarez. He always looks good. You've got to be something special. Drakkar Klose is just a little bit too mid to beat a guy like Joel Alvarez. You've got to be an Armand Sarukian. You've got to be a Damir Ismagulov when he's young in the game. Joel Alvarez is a problem. He's like the good, smart version of Jalen Turner who actually knows how to get these finishing situations and not walk away from Drakkar Klose after wobbling him with a flying knee. Goes out there, styles on the feet. Drakkar Klose lands a few shots here and there. Either way, he goes for the big... Drakkar Klose gets a takedown at one point, and I'm like, ooh, this isn't good. Joel Alvarez, very explosive, massive weight cut, huge dude for the lightweight division, 6'3", crazy reach, built like Jalen Turner for the featherweight division, lightweight division, sorry. Huge dude. Then he gets back up. Then he does his work on the feet again, starts stinging Drakkar Klose all over the place, jump knee lands, puts him out, has him in like a guillotine while shovel uppercutting Drakkar Klose in the face while he's out cold. If he would have just walked off after the knee, it would have been a walk-off KO. But he was like so into the finishing instincts that after sleeping him with the knee, he still latched up the guillotine and started cranking and then shoveling these uppercuts, realizing that he was out cold after he went for the guillotine. Really nasty finish by Joel Alvarez. We have a Spanish prospect in the UFC. I know there's Ilia Topuria. He's a Spanish speaker. He lives in Spain. I get it. But this is a Spanish guy. You know what I mean? This is something that we've needed in the UFC for a very long time and something that we're going to need more of if the UFC is eventually going to go to Spain. You go to the UK, the whole card's full of UK fighters that are prospects here and there. You go to another part of the world. You know, France even has a few prospects here and there. Spain has been lacking. Germany, forget about it. They've never had anyone and maybe never will have anyone. But Spain's got one in Joel Alvarez. So we'll see if the UFC utilize that when it comes to getting a card over there. We'll see how that goes down. We move on. Up the card, Michael Johnson defeats Ottman Azaitar by KO. Nasty work. And I saw it coming. On my live stream, I literally said, the KO's right there for Michael Johnson. He needs to go out there. He needs to either wait and bait out Ottman Azaitar to throw first. But what he ended up doing was he went first and then third, started the combination, defensively sound after that, and then finished the combination afterwards, went back in for another exchange, and ended up putting Ottman Azaitar out cold, follow-up shots. A lot of people are saying, follow-up shots, were they needed? It was bad sportsmanship. Why did he follow up after the KO? He was clearly out cold. Ottman Azaitar is a dirty cheat. Smuggled stuff into the UFC Fight Island card. They don't know what was in his bag. He jokingly said, I was just smuggling in some potatoes for the event. He literally had a guy fucking Mission Impossible climb up to his balcony of the hotel in Fight Island, nearly compromising the entire event to give him a bag of unknown things for his fight with Matt Frevola, I believe it was. It might not have been Matt Frevola, but he still got slept in that fight regardless. Fuck Ottman Azaitar, dude. I don't care if he took a few follow-up shots. He's scum, and he's a cheat, and I don't know why he's still in the UFC. But yeah, Michael Johnson, feel-good moment. Looked sharp in the fight, stunned Ottman Azaitar a few times in round one, who again was just throwing head kicks and overhand rights. He was like a highlight reel KO merchant, looking for the same techniques over and over again. Overhand right, head kick off that side. Johnson was blocking the head kicks. He was getting caught by more overhand rights than I would have liked to have seen. I thought he could have made the adjustment a little bit sooner because at a certain point he's got to realize, hang on a second, Ottman Azaitar literally has nothing but an overhand right and a high kick. So I figured he would feint, draw out the overhand right, pull and straight left on the counter or something along those lines, throw a left hook to counter it. Eventually he puts down Ottman Azaitar in round one. Great moment on the mic afterwards. Really wholesome to see an OG and an unk of the sport get another solid win here. And yeah, wicked win by Michael Johnson. You don't need to say no, Diddy, after you say you love your family and friends. That's, yeah. I don't think anyone was assuming that, Michael Johnson, okay? But good stuff. Either way, we move on. Up the card, Navajo Stirling versus Taco Tokos. This was a good fight. On any other card, this would stand out as that was pretty fun. You know what I mean? That was a fun fight. They both got scrappy. Was it the domination and the first round destruction that we expected from Navajo Stirling? Yes and no. It wasn't the first round destruction that ended in a finish, but it was the first round destruction. He went out there, destroyed Taco Tokos in the first round, landing shots non-stop down the pipe. He fights a lot like Dan Hooker, even though he doesn't look like him, and he's the white Adesanya. Why didn't you say Adesanya? If you actually look at the way someone fights and remove body types and the way someone looks in general, like saying Nasrat is like the so-and-so Kelvin Gastelum just because they look alike. If you actually look at the techniques, he is so Dan Hooker. The way he throws, the way he stands, the way he kicks. It's Dan Hooker all over. All over it's Dan Hooker. Really good to see. Things got tricky though. Round 2 got a little bit close, but he out-damaged Taco Tokos, but he gave up some positions in the grappling and started getting hit with some shots here and there. He kept doing too much, and then he started to slow down at the end of round 2, and then he picked it back up in round 3, had a good round. I'm surprised that Taco Tokos did not get finished to body shots at one point because he was ripping some body shots here and there and finding it. He was doing too much though. He was throwing hooks non-stop, head kicks off the same side all the time. And it was just like, dude, Taco Tokos has got a high, wide guard. Fire something down the pipe. Where was the jab? Where was the straight right hand? He kept throwing hooks and catching the forearms of Taco Tokos and sort of fumbling a finish for himself. But good experience. Went 3 rounds. Knows he can do it now. That's something good for a prospect to have, but not the domination and destruction we were expecting from Navajo Stirling. We move on. Up the card, Daniel Marcos versus Adrian Yanez. I picked Daniel Marcos to win this fight by 29-28 decision. A lot of people said I didn't, but originally in my prediction video, I was going to go in and pick Yanez, but then towards the end of the prediction of this fight, I said, you know what? I'm actually going to go with Daniel Marcos. He just does way more than Yanez, and he's got a lot more experience against good comp. I know you're going to say, well, Yanez has fought some really good opponents in the UFC, and he has. Marcos is like 17-0 now. He's fought some good regional fighters. I wasn't looking at losses of Yanez as like, this is good comp. You know, I'm saying, who has this guy beaten? Yanez hasn't beaten as good of comp as Daniel Marcos, and Marcos is well-rounded. He will mix in takedowns. He'll chop at the calf kick throughout the fight as well. And that's what we saw here. Yanez is a boxer. First of all, maybe Marcos wouldn't have won if he didn't groin shot and eye poke Yanez at the same time in round 1. Maybe that could have been a deciding factor. Who knows? Although it didn't look like it changed the fight too much. Who knows? I don't think it was 30-27. I think round 2 was pretty clearly Adrian Yanez. 2 of the judges got it pretty correct. It was actually a split decision, so only one of the judges got it correct. What do you know? But yeah, I thought this was a really good performance from both. But Adrian Yanez just boxes, man. He just boxes and he's slappy with it. And of course, sometimes it works and you get these really stylish finishes. But he was just like slapping with his shots, whereas Marcos was digging in with the jab and throwing the overhand and gritting down on a lot more of the shots. So, I don't know, it just made Yanez a bit more hesitant to go for things. Marcos was chopping at the low kick. And round 1, I thought he won the round pretty clear. Round 2 was Yanez's round because he stumbled him a few times early. But Marcos ended up making it a very close round after that. But you got to consider the fact that he did get a little bit jelly-legged at one point. Round 3, Marcos gets the takedown, does more damage. There is a moment at the end of round 3 where Adrian Yanez has Marcos up against the cage. 30 seconds left. Marcos is literally walking away from him because I think he was done. Like, not done as in like he can't continue, but he's just like, fuck, dude. I've won. Let me just make it to a decision. He was done trying to destroy Yanez. And Yanez wasn't done trying to destroy him. Although he was done trying to destroy him because, what do you know? Adrian Yanez shoots in for the clinch 30 seconds left like he's going to win the fight off of that. If Yanez would have gritted down in those last 30 seconds and went for some kind of combo again and got the better of it, he could have swayed that 3rd round on damage despite being down on bottom position for quite a big part of it. But instead he shot for the clinch. It was a really sad thing to see. But really good performance by Daniel Marcos. He stays undefeated. I still think he robbed Davey Grant. I think Yanez robbed Davey Grant as well. I think Davey Grant has really only lost to those two recently in his career, as far as I'm aware. Very underrated guy, but good win from Daniel Marcos. Picked him to win, and he got the job done. We move on. Up the card to another fight, which is Dustin Jacoby versus Vitor Petrino. Damn. Nasty KO from Dustin Jacoby. Now, I do want to mention, I saw scorecards scoring this fight for Petrino 2-0. I get it, he's big and yoked. Jacoby, I thought, very clearly won the first round of this fight. Don't get me wrong, Petrino was swinging hard. But Jacoby landed better in that round, I thought, and he landed a few good low kicks as well. And he landed a good shot at one point on Petrino and then sort of like shifted him around to where he had him up against a cage and landed a few follow-up shots as well. I thought he landed the only shots that got a reaction out of anyone that round, and I thought he won the first round. Round 2 went to Vitor Petrino. He actually got a reaction out of Jacoby or Jacoby, however you pronounce. People saying you have to pronounce it Jacoby. Either way. He had shots that sort of got a reaction out of Jacoby. And Jacoby was sort of a little bit stumbly at one point in round 2. But he kept it going and stayed focused and stayed locked in. They shared a few moments in the fight where they were laughing at each other because they knew how close both of them were to landing certain shots. There was a moment in round 2 where they sort of chuckled at each other because they both went for the same thing. And they both caught each other trying to get for the same setup. And they laughed and touched gloves at the end. There were some moments like that. Round 3, Jacoby just said, you know what? I've spotted Kamaru Usman in the crowd. I'm going to Masvidal this bitch. You know what I mean? He just went out there and literally slept him. Other than the lead hand where Usman poured at the lead hand before he landed his rear straight, Jacoby landed exactly the same shot as Usman. And Petrino went down pretty much exactly the same way as Masvidal, but ended up a little bit more on his face than Masvidal did. But the way he fell and the way the shot landed and the straight that landed as well, wicked KO win by Dustin Jacoby. Gets himself a performance bonus. Probably the biggest win of his career. He needed that. You know, he should have got the win over Khalil Roundtree years ago. I'm still not over that robbery. But this was a really good win from Jacoby to reset things. And for Petrino, it's tough, man. It's tough. He was once a really solid prospect to watch out for. But I remember watching his fights and I'm like, dude, it was kind of a scrap against Anton Turkali. It shouldn't be. You know what I mean? So, although he's powerful and dangerous, and look what he did to Modestas Pekauskas, people forget, man. Slept him, landed a big shot. It was all right. You know what I mean? But I just feel like he wasn't a prospect people sort of hyped him up to be. And stuffing his head in a guillotine against Smith and now being slept by Jacoby. Seems like my prophecy came true. Good win from Dustin Jacoby. Solid performance. I thought he did better before the end. A lot of people were like, he was losing and come back KO. What a terrible fight before then. I thought he was managing Petrino pretty well for a powerful guy that can put you out at any moment. So, really good win from Jacoby. We move on. And I picked him as an underdog as well. So, I'll take that. We move on. Up the card. Manel Kape versus Bruno Silva. Now, Manel Kape, after his last few fights, when he was pulling out of a few fights due to bad weight cuts and due to fights getting cancelled and people getting injured, and then his fight with Makayev's going to make the fight boring every time. You know, that's just how it's going to go with Muhammad Makayev. But you see these fights from Manel Kape, and he kind of lost a bit of that thing about Manel. Manel Kape was the star of the flyweight division. If he would have made that, I think there was a moment where if he would have made weight for a fight and won it against like a Mateus Nicolau, he would have got a title shot against Alejandro Pantoja at flyweight. A guy who he's already gone to a pretty competitive 29-28 decision against on short notice, by the way. Pay attention to that fight. That was a very, very competitive fight. Pantoja won it, but Manel Kape did very well on that fight. This performance against Bruno Silva. We're so back. We are so back. Calls out Adesanya on the mic afterwards, but let me talk. Emoting. He was like thinking of the TikTok edit, the TikTok edit that this is going to become in the middle of the fight with Bruno Silva. Moving out the way, brushing stuff off his shoulder, doing the people say the Adesanya pose. I was going to do the same thing. Dude, Adesanya ain't doing things like this, man. The way he was moving out there, he wasn't channeling his inner Anderson Silva, channeling his inner Israel Adesanya. I get it. But this was actually next level what he was doing out there. Because he's flyweight. They're way faster. They're way more athletic. That they can do more things. Of course, it's going to look a lot more technical. And it's impressive for Anderson Silva to have done those things at middleweight because he's a larger dude. You shouldn't be moving like that with that type of looseness and head movement and speed. But he was also fighting people that didn't know how to throw punches. Bruno Silva was winging shots at Manel Kape, and they were like grazing him by a hair the whole time. He's moving, he's slipping, he's rolling, he's mocking him. He was doing dance moves in the middle. He started hitting Bruno Silva and then just sort of started squatting in front of him and mocking him in front and then slipping out the way, landing another shot. Bruno Silva would go for spinning back fists. And Kape, you know how normally when they see someone spin, they just go and watch out and block and back up a little bit. Don't throw while someone spins. Manel Kape was like tagging him as he span and making him spin again with the shots that he landed. He had Bruno Silva pirouetting in the octagon. Landed a shot, span him around again. Bruno Silva's spinning around all over the place. Manel Kape's on him, super speed. 1, 2, 3, lands this, lands that. Starts talking to Dana White in the corner about his title shot that he's going to get with this win and this performance. Dude, Manel Kape, one of the greatest performances of all time in the UFC. I know it was against Bruno Silva. Bruno Silva is actually dangerous as an opponent and a good flyweight as a fighter in general. I think he's got, I mean, obviously he's lost before, but I think he's got like, I don't know if he was on some kind of win streak here, but I remember him winning like a lot of his recent fights. He's at least like 4-1 in his last 5 as far as I'm aware. Bruno Silva. Absolutely schooled. Groin shots. Oh my God. Manel Kape would enter this flow state. Slipping shots, landing body shots, landing head shots back. As soon as he got any momentum going to where he could get a finish, Bruno Silva would just groin shot him. Did it about 3 times. Eventually they stopped and took a point away from Bruno Silva. But he literally saved himself on about 3 different occasions in that fight by groin shotting to like remove the flow state from Manel Kape, which worked. But then Kape would eventually build back into it. Kape went out there to make a statement. An absolute statement in that fight. The Makayev fight was like, nothing happened. Makayev just held on to him, tried to pull his trousers down to escape a knee bar. Makayev did his best to make it boring. And Kape, I think, broke his foot in that fight at one point. Whatever, I'm going to make excuses for him. It is what it is. But this was like a complete new, revamped impression of Manel Kape. Moving forward, title elimination bout, straight away. Absolutely. Kai Kara France matchup while they do Figueiredo versus Pantoja 2. Winner of that gets a title shot. Brandon Royval can fight another contender for all I care. I don't want to see the third fight when he's already down 0-2 against Alejandro Pantoja. Same with Moreno. They can fight the contenders. Kara France, Manel Kape for a title shot. Figueiredo fights in a rematch against Alejandro Pantoja in the meantime. But this was crazy. The way he was, the speed that he had, that he was finding these shots at, then mocking and then dancing a little bit and then just sort of doing a little move here and there. In the middle of like Bruno Silva winging absolute bombs at him in round 3 as well, where it got a little bit tricky. 3 groin shots from Bruno Silva. I will say this. He did kind of cuff. In any other circumstance, they probably would have said, that was a groin shot. We're going to let this move on. But because Bruno Silva had thrown so many what looked like intentional groin shots to stop the action, fuck him, dude. Fuck him. Manel Kape swarms, gets the finish. It might not have landed to the cup flush. It might have also hit the body, but it definitely grazed the cup of Bruno Silva. And you heard it a little bit. But, dude, Manel Kape looked absolutely phenomenal. Amazing performance. Looked like he's about to go on a championship run. I'm surprised he didn't say it again on the microphone, but he didn't want to ruin his chances of getting a title shot. They're not going to give him it because he needs a bit more momentum first, but we're so back. We move on. Cub Swanson versus Billy Quarantillo. Just back-to-back-to-back bangers on this card. Billy Quarantillo looked good in round 2. Round 1, Cub Swanson won it on damage, but it was a very scrappy round and both of them went back and forth. I personally believe this doesn't warrant a fight of the night bonus. They're trying to give Billy Quarantillo 50k. I don't know why. In my opinion, I mean, Manel Kape didn't get a performance bonus. Joaquin Buckley didn't get a performance bonus. You look at some of the other fighters on the card. I think Michael Johnson got one. I don't know who else got one, but like either Joel Alvarez or Sean Woodson didn't get a bonus. They gave out 2 performance bonuses, I think to Michael Johnson and to Dustin Jacoby, or Jacoby. And they skipped out a few that also deserved it. Joel Alvarez, Sean Woodson, Manel Kape, Joaquin Buckley. A lot of these guys deserved some stuff, but they gave a fight of the night out to Swanson and Quarantillo. Why didn't we empty out the bag? That was one of the best fight cards of all time. Give them all performance bonuses. What are you doing, Dana? Such an L from the UFC. Everyone should have got a bonus. But it's all good. Great win from Cub Swanson. Round 1, he's winning it, but it's still competitive, and Quarantillo's landing his good shots, but Swanson's landing the big ones. Round 2, Swanson's still landing the big ones, but Quarantillo's pressure is getting too much. He's taken down Cub Swanson a few times in round 2. He's landing with volume. He's teeing off a little bit with his jab. He's just peppering his jab out there. Very slow, but he was trudging forward into the fight. Round 3, the odds go up live. Massive favorite, Billy Quarantillo after the second round. And I tell my chat, live bet Cub Swanson. He will find the KO here. And boom, lead left hook, straight right hand. Flatline KOs Billy Quarantillo out cold in round 3. Another highlight reel KO after an amazing performance by Manel Kape, after a flatline KO from Dustin Jacoby, after a scrap between Marcos and Yanez, after a great beatdown from Stirling over Tokos, over a flatline KO from Johnson over Azaitar, after a wicked finish by Joel Alvarez over Drakkar Klose, after a wicked finish from Sean Woodson over Fernando Padilla, and another great performance from Felipe Lima and Miles Johns, and of course a women's MMA fight that shit the fucking place out. You know how it goes. We move on to the main event. Joaquin Buckley versus Colby Covington. Colby Covington lost. I thought he looked in the fight. Not in a way that he was ever winning the fight, but I thought he was actually like making a fight out of it, which is not what I expected, by the way. I literally thought we were going to see Colby Covington go out there, shell up, get bullied around by Buckley, and eventually get finished in the first 2 rounds by flatline KO or a body shot TKO. I was saying body shot TKO. Great performance by Joaquin Buckley, and he deserves full credit for this win. A lot of people in my chat were saying stuff like, Colby's washed, he didn't show up. And don't get me wrong, what are you expecting out of Covington? He didn't look good on the feet, there was no pop in his shots. And I'm like, that's Covington. You know what I mean? He's all right on the feet. He's not going to ever like weave and bob under what Buckley is doing and sting him back with a perfect 1-2 and then slip and rip on a counter. Like, Covington is a guy who peppers you up with shots, survives you because he's incredibly tough, and he proved that in this fight. Ridiculous chin, ridiculous grit to take some of the body shots he took in round 2 and 3. And also the cut is the main thing that we're going to talk about as well, which was massive in the fight. Buckley wins. Buckley beats him up. Buckley gets the job done. I think the cut and the blood made people think it was a lot more one-sided than it was. Very dominant. Well, I'm not going to say very dominant, but he won every round, Buckley. So yes, I don't think Covington would have ever made a comeback. We're going to get into the stoppage in a second. But I think the blood on Covington's face was like, damn, Buckley's piecing him up right now. And he was outstriking Covington. He was stuffing the takedowns from Colby Covington. But don't act like there weren't a few moments where you were like, hang on, Covington's in there. He landed a good shot there. Covington showed up. Buckley deserves full credit. This isn't the Covington that fought Leon Edwards and just didn't do anything and was there for the ride, go in 25 minutes and act like, I didn't get finished. Therefore, it's kind of a moral victory. Covington was out there to win. He gritted down when things got tough. He tried to get back into winning positions. He was in a finish or be finished fight right there. It wasn't a Covington like, oh, I guess if I can win, I will. But if not, I'll just try and survive to a decision. He went out there in a finish or be finished fight. And that was one of the first times we've seen that out of, not first times we've seen it at Covington, but after the last performance, I think Buckley deserves more credit for his Covington win than Edwards does. Fact. That was a great performance from Buckley. Good shots to the body with side kicks. I saw him throwing side kicks to the body. Buckley's throwing fucking side kicks to the fucking body. What are we doing? We're making stuff up in the... Buckley's changing it up out there. Side kicks to the body. Ripping body shots here and there. He was this close to a nasty uppercut KO a few times. Sometimes it landed, sometimes it barely whiffed, and those ones looked like they would have taken Covington's head off. But Covington's sick chin. Covington's got a sick chin, was taking big shots. Grappling wasn't going well for him, and then afterwards it wasn't good for him because he's not Marab, he's not on EPO. He's shooting these takedowns, and Buckley would stuff it, and Covington would be on the ground like, fuck, man. I didn't get my takedown. Instead of being straight back up and right back on Buckley looking for a finish or looking to get another takedown, he was like, damn. You could see him on his knees for a second like, fuck, dude, I ain't got no physicality over Buckley. Buckley's a big, strong dude for the division. Dense for the division as well. That's very difficult for... Like, he's the same height as RDA about, maybe a little bit taller. And the muscle mass on him compared to RDA for the welterweight division, and the strength, I would imagine, as well. Night and day for Covington's pressure-based grappling to deal with. Wicked win from Buckley. Let's talk about the stoppage, though. Because this is one thing I had a big problem with and I was screaming about when the fight stopped. Because this was such a great card. I wanted a definitive, brutal end. Either a Covington, oh my God, he did it. You know, he pulled it off when no one thought he could. Amazing win from Covington. Or a Buckley. Damn, that was devastating. Buckley, highlight reel finish, TKO, KO, whatever it would have been. This is a massive highlight reel moment that's going to go down, and massive viral clip afterwards of him getting a brutal finish. This won't be a viral clip. This will be Colby Covington getting into the fight as the fight went on. I know he was cut badly and it didn't look good for him, but he was getting on top position. You know what I mean? He was working some takedowns. Blood was going everywhere. Don't get me wrong, blood was leaking everywhere. Round one, Buckley's doing his thing. Covington lands here and there, but Buckley's doing his thing, stuffing the takedowns. Doesn't look good for Covington, but he's in there to fight, and you notice that in the first round. Round two, Covington not really doing too much on the feet, lands a few. Buckley lands more, lands better. Covington actually gets the takedown in round two, ends up in half guard on top. Side control at one point nearly, I think, as well. Focuses on half guard, looks to maybe take mount on Buckley as well, but Buckley manages after about 2 minutes of Colby on top, looking for dominant position. Buckley manages to get back up to his feet. But that was surprising to me. I thought this was going to be one-way traffic from Buckley. Covington was in there. Got the takedown, spent time on top, landed a few punches here and there, this, was cut above the eye. We'll talk about the cut as well. Buckley gets back up towards the end of round two. Both guys are landing here and there, but Buckley's landing more. He's landing better. He's landing more often. Round three. Buckley's doing his best work early in the round. Landing good shots. Covington's landing back here and there. He's still in it the whole time. He lands a fucking tornado kick at one point. I don't want anyone saying, he beat some washed version of Covington. Don't get me wrong. He's probably not going to have as much grit as he had when he needed the money and he needed the belts and all of this. But I don't know what Covington people were expecting. He's not a huge physical dude for the division. He's not going to chuck around Buckley in the cage. He's not going to knock out Buckley with one punch with crazy precision striking. This is Covington, and either you succumb to it or you don't. Buckley didn't succumb to it. He stuffed the takedowns. Round three, he stuffed a few of them early, and then Covington really started being on his knees in front of him quite a bit. And it was like, damn, dude, this ain't looking good for Covington. But then Covington, after being on the ground and Buckley sort of getting onto him and landing a few elbows here and there on that side where the cut was, which I think could have opened it up even more, and definitely made a lot more blood trickle out. Covington recovers, ends up on top after escaping a triangle. He's on top. He's landing punches and elbow here and there, a couple punches to the head of Buckley. Then Buckley gets up after about a minute of that, and they just call off the fight to a cut. It felt like, yes, Buckley would have won. That was evident from the fight. But you robbed us of Buckley getting either a highlight reel finish that would have been definitive and would have been like a highlight on his career forever. And you also robbed us of what could have ended up being a full-time 5-round scrap where even though, I don't think Covington would have won the fight, he definitely would have still put up a fight in the 4th and 5th round and ended up doing well as the fight went on. I think that could have turned out to a 49-46 decision for Buckley, 50-45 decision for Buckley, but Covington would have had some successful moments in the later rounds. I think you've got to give him that chance. Cut over the eyelid. It's bad. We've seen way worse. Let's talk about the cut. I first thought it was an eye poke because Covington shot for a takedown. I didn't see a punch that Buckley landed. And then when Buckley got underhooks and stuffed the takedown and pushed him off, Covington complained about an eye poke and his eye was bleeding. So I was like, oh, Buckley stuffed the takedown, got the underhooks, pushed Colby off at the face. Or not off at the face, but he just pushed him off of him. And I was like, damn, somewhere there when he got the uppercut, maybe a finger grazed the eye and opened up a cut that has been there. We know Covington's got cuts all over his eye. He's got a lot of scar tissue there. But it was actually a cuffing uppercut where like the side grazed Covington on the eye, right on the eye. And that just immediately affected the fight early on. That will be what Covington runs with. The cut affected everything. And, you know, he could have put up a better fight without the cut, but I just don't think he was ever physical enough to get Buckley down the way he needed to in here. So I did think it was always going to be a long night for him, but, you know, it was a fight, and Buckley deserves respect. This wasn't like a washed Covington, Buckley takes out the trash. This was a Covington who was gritting down, which he normally does against Americans of this type. Just saying. Against Usman as well, there seems to be an extra bit of, I'm not fucking losing to these guys. There does seem to be a bit of that with Covington, where Leon Edwards, UK British guy, you know, same with Buckley as Usman, but not as much. And it seems to be like Covington he will accept a bit more. You know what I mean? I don't mind losing to these, but then when it's certain opponents, Covington does seem to have this grit in his teeth, like, I ain't fucking losing to these. Not in the USA, I ain't losing to these motherfuckers. Colby knows the humiliation that's on the line if he loses based on his political affiliations and stuff. If he loses to an Usman or a Buckley, let's just say that. So he's a little bit more gritty when it comes to those matchups. But yeah, just not enough. The cut opened up. Was the story of the fight. Buckley was landing better shots throughout the fight as well. Stuffing the takedowns. I just wish we would have seen it go to a definitive end. I wanted a brutal finish from either Buckley getting a nasty KO that would have been a highlight reel KO on his career, or we get a 5-round scrap, which it was looking like it was going to be. Even though Covington was losing, it was scrappy. It was a fun fight where he had moments, where he escaped positions, where he got back onto top position, where he got takedowns here and there, where he landed shots. He landed a tornado kick at one point. He landed shots here and there. I just wish we would have got that. But the cut, I'm just going to say it. We've seen way worse. Great win from Buckley. We'll get into what's next for him. We've seen way worse. My Take Beck was allowed to continue. You look through other fights that we've seen. Irene Aldana at UFC 300 or UFC 303, whatever it was in the sphere. Her whole head was opened up from a cut right into the eye. Her entire face was opened up. They just let it go. I'm not saying they should have done, but they gave Irene Aldana every chance to win for her career. This is everything for Covington. If he loses, he's not in the title picture ever again, probably. Maybe there's an Ian Gary matchup in the future that they could do, just to be a big fight in the future for Colby Covington. And if he wins that, maybe then, you know what I'm saying? Who knows if he wins it or not. But he needed this. This is career-defining stuff for Colby Covington. I know every fight is, but for Colby, after time off and not looking good recently and not really getting any big wins recently, this was a career-defining fight for him. And you're just going to stop it there. Cut over the eye. Yes, it's bleeding, but come on, we've seen way fucking worse, and we've seen fights continue. This reminded me of Masvidal Diaz, but if Diaz got a few takedowns. You know what I mean? That's kind of what it was. Sure, Masvidal won, but come on. We know this guy works as the fight goes on. We know this is his moment in the 4th and 5th. Buckley was swinging like crazy. This is Covington's chance. You know what I mean? Let him have the 4th and 5th to have the chance. Let him start the 4th. Get back to the corner. There was like 40 seconds left in the round. 20-something seconds. 4:42 of round 3. There was 18 seconds left of the round. Let Covington make it to the stall. You let him go to the stall in round 2. It's not like cut was getting any worse. I know, but then again, when they started seeing the cornermen looking at the cut, the cornermen did throw in a towel. Allegedly. Someone just told me that. I don't know if they did. I'm going to look it up right now. Colby Covington towel. Did he have a towel thrown in? I don't know if he did. Someone mentioned something. I don't know. Someone just said it in my chat, and now it's going to be rent-free in my head. I'm going to check it right now. Colby Covington towel. Just going to check it. Walked out with his shirt already cut on both sides, making it easier to rip off. There you go. Colby Covington make an appearance. Nothing. I've been absolutely debated. There was never a towel thrown in. I don't see shit on any of that. That's how it goes. Either way. Anyway, the cut was... Dude, we've seen worse eye injuries and cuts. Come on, man. And then, you know what hits home harder? It looked like a fucking mum that was just in the cage, wincing at the blood coming out of Covington. Sorry, if you wince at blood, you're not a fucking person who decides if a fight can go on or not in the UFC. She was like, he's going to lose the eyelid. You know how much shit we've seen? Benoit Saint Denis gets to go through round 2, but Colby can't go another round. Let's see a definitive end. You know what I mean? Come on, man. It's so crazy. Either way. Good stuff. Wicked performance from Buckley. This mum is in the cage like, it's bleeding. Yeah, we're going to have to call this off. And I just, why? How would she have the job? We need someone. Main event, 2 top 10 savages in the world. They're going to war. Who's going to win? We need someone to decide if these people are able to continue or not. You there, taking your kids to school this morning. You can do this as a... Who is employing... Can we have a former fighter? A ref that isn't refereeing that night? Do that job? Surely they would know more than some random woman I've never seen before in my fucking life that's probably just got done tucking her kids in for bed that night. It's just... I didn't get it. Either way, Joaquin Buckley won. I think he beats Belal Muhammad. I think he beats Kamaru Usman. I think the styles to beat him are Carlos Prates, Shavkat Rakhmonov. JDM, I think he could also beat, but that would also be a tricky matchup for him as well. But I do think he beats Belal Muhammad, and I do think he beats Kamaru Usman. Wicked takedown defense, very strong, powerful on the feet, good cardio. I just think he wouldn't get bullied. I don't think you can bully Buckley and like pressure him and break him. I don't think you can break Joaquin Buckley in a fight going 5 rounds, and he's just going to keep getting better and better as well because he's young. I think you need to shut him off. You need to shut off Buckley and switch him off somehow. And I don't see Belal or Usman being able to do that. Of course, Usman could, but I just don't think it's a reliable prediction to make. I would trust a Prates to land a shot that could just switch him off early while he's moving around and not under his feet, not with his feet under him the whole time. Sometimes he gets a little bit off his feet, moving around so much, could get caught and slip and slept. Rakhmonov, I could see maybe like getting him in the clinch, getting a knee to the face. JDM could put mustard on him, you know what I mean? That's what's going to have to happen to beat Buckley. But I think he's a real threat in the division, and I've been saying it, and now we're finally seeing it. I called him to beat Wonderboy by round 3 TKO. Said he would put mustard on Covington and get a round 2 TKO, but he never ended up doing it. But a win nevertheless, and a good win. Really good win. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip, I'll see you later. One of the greatest cards of all time. If it was a flatline KO in the main event, or it went to a 5-round war, I think it would have been the greatest card of all time. And if there were no women's fights on the prelims that just ruined everything, then it also would have been good as well. But overall, can't complain. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip, I'll see you later. Jack Shaw got a retirement package as well, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that. Stipe didn't get one for a while, but Jack Shaw, on the week of his retirement, we just want to say a great honor to Jack Shaw. What an absolute legend of the... No offense. I'm a big fan of Jack Shaw, but it was cool to see that he got that respect. We doing that for everyone from now on. He never got ranked. I'm just saying it. We're setting a standard we're going to have to keep moving forward. But, you know, shout out to Jack Shaw, I guess. He got a retirement package at the end of his career, which is cool. I'm glad that Jack Shaw retired with everything intact. You know what I mean? He's got some money. Didn't have to suffer a bunch of KO losses in a row. Some people get forced out the game. So, why am I talking about Jack Shaw? But it was just a funny moment in the middle of the fight. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle Pip, I'll see you later. I aced the card other than the early prelim opener. Did pretty well. Goodbye.